So, good morning, friends. Once again, I welcome you back to this class of video lecture. Friends, this is BA Part 3rd English Literature, and today we take up paper first, that is Poetry and Drama. And today we take up a very famous poem written by Dylan Thomas, and the title of the poem is Fern Hill. Friends, before I come to the poem, it is important for us to have a brief overview of Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas was uh, born on 22nd October 1914 in Swansea in South Wales. His father, D.J. Thomas, was senior English master at the Swansea Grammar School. The poet in later life wrote two poems about his father, from which we can deduce that he loved and revered him to a great extent. Thomas's father had himself poetic ambitions. He must have had remarkable gift as a teacher, for many of the leading Welsh literary figures today were, at one time or another, his pupils. Thomas wrote a radio play, but in the main it is his poetry which is read, acclaimed, and appreciated. In the introduction to his collected poems, brought out just a year before his death, he described his poetry as written for the love of man and in praise of God. It is a very carefully crafted verse, and the philosophical and intellectual tone is positive and affirmative. There is also a controlled sense of rhetoric in his poetry. The orderliness of his work contrasts markedly with the disorderly and drunkenness of his personal life, which led to his early death at the age of 39, cutting short a promising career. Dylan Thomas appeared to have had a very happy childhood. We might legitimately infer as much from stories like The Fight and the poems like Fernhill and Poems in October. There is plenty of other evidence as well. The Fernhill has been published in 1946, friends. And this is one of the best lyrics written by Dylan Thomas. Herbert Reed calls it the most absolute poetry. The poem is the celebration of holiday in childhood. Yes, this is a poem about celebration of holidays in childhood age, which is the most thrilling experience for kids, as we all know that even in Hindi and in Urdu literature there are many rhymes, lyrics and poems based on celebration of holidays in childhood. And Jagdish Singh's famous ghazal is relevant over here to be quoted. The poem is the celebration of holiday in childhood spent by the poet with his aunt Annie Jones and uncle at their farm in the countryside in Thomas's native South Wales. It could be a question for examination purpose. In examination, the name of the aunt could be asked, the name of the uncle could be asked, the particular name of the place where this celebration was held might be asked. So, the poem is the celebration of holiday in childhood spent by the poet with his aunt Anne Jones and uncle at the farm in the countryside in Thomas's native South Wales. It has been held as a rhapsody on an exciting evocation of the poet's childhood. One could see in it the romantic ardour of Black and Wordsworth, or of 17th century a wagon. They all see childhood as essentially holier than adulthood. It is morality as sanctified innocence. Yes, childhood has been the most upright part of life. The purity is there, the innocence is there, it is holy, it doesn't possess all the weaknesses of adulthood. It is moral, right? Full of innocence. The child's vision is seen as a reflection of the freshness of the world in the creation. This is very important, and this philosophical idea has been poured in the poem that the vision of the child has been a reflection of the freshness of the world in the creation. Yes, it reflects the freshness of creation. The poem is full of images of heaven and Eden, or light and color, and of gaiety of mood and movement, of mirth and merriment. The poem is about youth and happiness, and about the beauty and glory of nature. It celebrates human vitality and joy, and races through the day with all its pleasure. A repetitive pattern is established through the reference to time and through the presence of the poetic eye. So, the opening lines of the poem run like this. I read the opening lines. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night about the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes, and order honored among wagons I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time I lordly had the trees and leaves. So the opening lines are very striking. The poet feels at the top of the world, to be the king and crown of the world. The poet says that I felt at home among the trees, among the apple trees. I was so very happy that the very house appeared to be singing. The grass was pleasing green. The starry night over the valley was no less beautiful than the day. Time was kind enough to me in the heyday of my life. I was the poet of all. It was a golden period for me. It was the most glorious period of my life. So, golden in the heydays of his eyes, and honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns. The poet says next, with the pride of prince, with the pride of crown, I rode high on the farm wagons between the heavily laden apple trees. I was lord and master of the apple trees. They trailed behind me with daisies, and barely as I drove in the wagon, the apple blown off the trees by the wind streamed on either side. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard, and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be, golden in the mercy of his means. I was green and carefree on the farm, well known to all. I sang about the happy yard, as if the farm was my home. The sun looked unusually young, and time was especially bountiful to me. And green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, and cows sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams. Green and golden I was both as a herdsman and a huntsman, The cows danced to my horn. Clear and cold were the barks of the foxes, whose huntsman I fancied myself to be when the holy Sabbath came. The pebbles of the stream lured me with their hymns. So it was a time when he was very happy amongst everything which was available over there, and he imagines himself both as herdsman and huntsman. All the sun long it was running, it was lovely. The hay fields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing lovely and watery and find green as grass. All the day long I ran about the place merrily. Yes, he used to run from one destination to another without any motive, without any particular objective in his mind. Just as a child rushes from one place to another, far and wide. Lovely scenes greeted me everywhere. The haystacks were high as the house. The chimneys were sending out pleasing tunes. Delightful was the play in the warm open air. The warmth of the sun was as enjoyable as the cool green grass. Right? So the poem moves on, and finally the poet says, and nightly under the simple star, as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the night jars flying with the ricks and the horses, flashing into the dark. The happy routine extended far into the night. The very stars of the sky had a quiet simplicity about them. They were so friendly to me. As I rode back to sleep in the farm, the owls took charge of the beauties of the place. See the personification. Far into the night, I lingered among the lovely horses in the stable. Then I could hear the hoots of the owl from the neighboring skies. Out in the open, they were flying with the ricks. Inside the stables, the horses were flashing in the dark. So, this is the poem, friends, and we complete the poem in the next class. Thank you.